Hello, this is Colin Liddell, and this is the Shortpod, a brief and succinct podcast commenting on the events and issues of the day. And today, the date is the 5th of September, 2025. Now, I think the most important issue of the day is the intelligence of the ruling executive of the most important country in the world. Or the lack of it, to be honest. Now, a lot of people think MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. Actually, it probably stands for something like Morons Against Governing America. Now, there's different kinds of intelligent people, and there's different kinds of stupid people. In short, I think there's four main types. There's intelligent people who know they're intelligent. There's intelligent people who don't really know they're intelligent. And then there are stupid people who know they're stupid. That's probably the majority of mankind, I would estimate. And then there is the worst variety, stupid people who think they're intelligent. Now, the American voters don't really like intelligent leaders. They don't really like intelligent presidents, except that they kind of do. There's a kind of contradiction in what voters want from their leaders. They want somebody who makes all the correct decisions, but also someone they can feel either a bit superior to or on the same level with. So this, in effect, means that Americans tend to be biased against smart people, and smart politicians who realize this tend to act like stupid people. Now, this characteristic has become especially clear since at least the presidency of Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was a kind of smart person, and he seemed quite smart. And even though he had a kind of everyman quality, people didn't quite like him or trust him because they viewed him as smart. Now, in America, people have a tendency to believe that smart people are cheating them. This has probably a lot to do with their kind of rustic culture. Most people were farmers until quite recently, I think. And so they don't really trust the smooth-talking, intelligent type of person. So this is something that played against Richard Nixon, especially towards the end. And then, since Richard Nixon, presidents have been very, very wary, for the most part, of appearing too intelligent. Gerald Ford, who succeeded Nixon, he was thought to be stupid. Not really too familiar with his presidency, but maybe he was, or maybe he was putting on an act. He was defeated in 1976 by Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter had a quite high intelligence, I believe, because when he was in the Navy, he went through IQ tests, and his IQ was about 150, thereabouts. But, he always played up this peanut farmer persona. So he was obviously intelligent enough to realize that coming over as a highbrow intellectual wouldn't work well with the American voter. Carter was succeeded by Reagan. Reagan, he was an actor, so he didn't have any problem playing up to the slightly idiotic president that he's generally remembered as. He was succeeded by his vice president, George H.W. Bush. Unfortunately, Bush Sr. didn't realize the rules of the game, and he played to the full the part of this kind of brainy East Coast elite, and that didn't really go down well with the American voters, who flocked in their droves to vote for Bill Clinton and his kind of Alabama farm boy kind of act. Clinton was obviously a very intelligent president. If you look up estimates of presidential intelligence, he often comes out near the top with an IQ that goes all the way up to about 160. But let's say he kept his intellectual light very well hidden under a bushel. By the end of his presidency, people were starting to suspect that he might be a bit too smart, and that was kind of playing against him. But he managed to get his 2 terms, and there was a kind of backlash against smartness, because I think Al Gore, who was Clinton's VP, was seen as quite a smart intellectual type of person. Instead, the voters went for the kind of drunken cowboy George W. Bush and his weird way of mangling up sentences. A lot of the estimates of IQ tend to put George W. Bush very, very low. But that might just be because he was quite good at presenting himself as a kind of dumb yokel. Barack Obama, who came next, he was playing a different game, mainly because he was black. The voters didn't want a black man pretending to be less intelligent than he was. Instead, they kind of liked the fact that Obama was well-spoken and seemed to be a bit intellectual. So if you're a black politician, probably to succeed at the presidential level, you have to appeal to white people. So you have to sound white. And this was one of the big issues with Obama. People sometimes accused him of sounding white, but also that was the reason a lot of white people were happy to vote for him. Then we can mention Joe Biden. Nobody would accuse Joe Biden of being a towering intellect, but he was quite a sharp operator when he was younger. But he also played a down-to-earth guy who liked a beer and ice cream and a fancy sports car. A bit of a moron, not somebody who liked to go to the opera or read books on Wittgenstein. So again, he fitted into the paradigm of US presidents pretending to be, let's say, at least 30 to 40 IQ points below their real intelligence. Then we come to Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is an interesting case. Some people think he's a genius, believe it or not. Now, I've observed him for several years now, and, I've built up a lot of background data on him. And it just seems to me that this guy is the real McCoy. He's the genuine article. He's not some super intelligent guy pretending to be idiotic so that he won't scare away the voters. He's actually a bit of a dummy, and that's what the voters like. I mean, if somebody much more intelligent and intelligent seaman was making the kind of atrocious political decisions Donald Trump was making, his career would be over. It would probably have never even got started. But Donald Trump has that everyman moron quality, which everyman American morons, i.e. the majority of the voters, kind of resonate with. And this is why he doesn't have to work as hard as some previous presidents. He can just do it off the bat. Moronic statements. Look at me, I'm just like you, I'm a dumbass, I don't know where country X or country Y is, etc., etc. And this is also the reason why Donald Trump is a revolutionary president. Because being a genuine dummy, he's too stupid to be co-opted by the pre-existing system, to be assimilated into the former elites. And so he's kind of created this fracture in the American ruling class, which is having a very debilitating effect upon America and indeed the global system. Now, the other key point about Donald Trump is he's an incredibly stupid person, but he doesn't think he is. He actually thinks he's a genius. The reason a lot of his followers think he's a genius is because he thinks he's a genius, and he took the trouble of telling them that he was a genius, and they were dumb enough to believe him. So if you think Donald Trump is particularly smart, you might very well be in that category. Now, before the 2020 election, suffice to say, I was not particularly thrilled by the two options that American voters had to choose between, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But I had a slight preference for Kamala Harris, and this was basically based on the fact that Kamala Harris, whatever you think about her intelligence, and I don't think much of her intelligence, I think she is probably quite stupid. She was one of those stupid people who kind of knew she was stupid, and so probably if she had been president, she would have listened to a lot of more intelligent people than herself. In the case of Donald Trump, what happened? We got a stupid person who thought he was intelligent, and then he also appointed a lot of stupid people. Now, if you look at the Trump administration, it's kind of packed full of dimwits and morons. I mean, what else could you say about RFK Jr.? What about Pete Hesketh? People like that. I mean, there are some real dummies in the Trump cabinet. There are also probably, a few smart people there as well. Although Kash Patel definitely isn't one of them, nor is Tulsi Gabbard. But among the kind of brighter lights in the Trump cabinet, there are people like, I guess, J.D. Vance is not entirely stupid. Marco Rubio is quite bright in his own way. So there are a few semi-bright people. Now, this whole issue of intelligence and who's bright and who isn't bright, it's separate from political preferences. I think you can have political preferences, that's fine. You can be a right-winger or a left-winger. You can be a ethno-nationalist or an extreme Bernie bro socialist, whatever, that's fine. That's your freedom to choose. But the problem is that whatever political party gets into power, if it's run by room temperature IQ morons, it's not going to end well. And this is what the Trump administration looks like. I mean, I'm sympathetic to a lot of the agendas of the Trump administration. I think America has to, be a bit tougher on immigration. There has to be much more emphasis on traditional morality, on fighting crime, on creating a kind of demographically healthy society, which are all these kind of right-wing agendas that people in the Trump administration slightly lean towards. But if you have idiots steering the ship, even if they're trying to steer the ship in the right direction, that ship is eventually going to hit some rocks, bang into an iceberg, or just get lost. And so that's the problem with the Trump administration. You've got a real idiot in charge. He's appointed a lot of other idiots, and it's essentially a ship of fools, the Trump administration. And this makes it radical, but it also makes it dangerous. And it also makes it dangerous to the radicalism that it's attempting to promote. Over and out.